Listen, this is no man's land. It means no man can cross. I am no man. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Today I've got a whole slate of Batman No Man's Land Platinum Edition head swaps. I'm also going to be trying out some belt and trunk swaps. Just keep in mind that on every Nightfall repaint the trunks are actually glued down, so I'm limited to only figures I can pop and swap the actual mechanism with. Like the regular version, it does suffer for not having a wired cape. I fixed that in the regular version. I will not, however, be doing that with this one just yet. That's something I'm going to save for the Versus video with Troika Batman. And on the subject of Troika Batman, don't worry, he'll definitely be getting his own head swaps. On that note, of course, it goes without saying that figures with this kind of articulation are incompatible with No Man's Land, so no swaps with any of these. Again, those will be for this guy. With all that out of the way, let's dig in. First up, and let's take a look at some of Bruce's more unusual costumes. Kicking things off is the Grim Knight. Now that a new version of the Grim Knight's been released with an updated head, I have been thinking about retiring this from the head swap rotation, though I do think the No Man's Land head looks good. That said, let me know in the comments if you'd be okay with me not bringing this guy out anymore. On the flip side, for a short-eared option, this isn't too bad. This head does have some limitations, obviously, not the least of which being that he's missing a quarter of it. Still, seeing this, and I think we're off to a pretty solid start. Next up, and for one of my favorites, and here we have Dark Knight's Death Metal. For another short-eared option, this one is decent, leastways you wouldn't have to do any repainting. For my taste, though, these ears might be just a bit too short. With that being said, I love this combination. Obviously, the shorter ears are more accurate to the source material, but for a design like this, I just think it looks a lot cooler. That said, and for one of my least favorites, and here we have Dark Detective. As always, my biggest issue with this head is it looks less like Batman and more like John Walker Captain America. One of these days, I'll bite the bullet and customize this head without the ears, but even then, I do think that this head has too many lines and tech details to properly match this costume's aesthetic. To see what a difference not having exposed ears makes, here you go. If you like the idea of an exposed neck, the skin tones actually match up pretty perfectly. Personally, though, I think I would have been more okay with this design if the coat was black and if the neck and arms weren't exposed. Lastly, for this section is the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh. Just like with Dark Detective, one of these days I just need to get an extra one of these and paint the mask black for the head swaps. The novelty of an all-black Batman costume is it looks like Michael Keaton, and this more scuffed up mask kind of helps to recreate that better. Paint the mask black and maybe swap out the belt, and this would be something pretty special. Conversely though, and as usual, I don't like this as much. It just loses a lot of personality being so polished and clean. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this video so far, do me a favor and give it a like. Next up, and let's take a look at some of the rare instances where someone other than Bruce is underneath the cowl. Beginning with the first DC Multiverse Batman I ever bought, and here's Thomas Wayne from Flashpoint. To my eye, at least, this head feels like a better version of the Dark Knight's Death Metal. The proportions are a bit more natural and the ears are a little bit more pronounced. If you like what you see, all you'd have to do is paint the eyes. Alternately, and while it might not be accurate to the comic, I do like this look. The pointy shoulders just lend themselves better to larger ears. I also prefer the wide eyes, but if you want to be more accurate, of course, you'd have to paint them red. Next up, and for the Batman head swap MVP, here's Tim Fox from Future's End. In general, I like this costume a lot, and I think it would be a great template for a live-action version. And this head does sit on it pretty well, but let's be honest, this is the combination we want to see, and wow. With nothing but those pops of yellow and the piercing white eyes, this looks great. As usual, very, very striking. For one of the surprisingly better Batman heads, and here's Jim Gordon from Batman Endgame. For not being Bruce Wayne, this one always looks good. The head itself is a bit more narrow and blends better with the neck, cutting a silhouette that reminds me more of the movie. Interestingly enough, the No Man's Land head is actually a little bit smaller than usual. As such, this is one of the few swaps I think might actually improve this body. Generally speaking, other heads, and even the one that comes with it, is a bit too big. We've looked at blue and gray in the last video, but now let's take a look at the black and gray Dick Grayson from Batman Reborn. The Batman Reborn head just feels so specific specifically Dick Grayson, it's hard for me to like it on other bodies. If you like it though, I'm happy to help. This, however, is the combination I wanted to see, and I am not disappointed. Swap out the belt and the forearms, and I think you'd really have something. And that something looks a little something like this. A little bit of paint and the short-eared head swap of your choice, and you're well on your way to a Nightfall scale black and gray version of Hush. Veering into other Bat media, and here we have some video game options. First up, and for one of my all-time favorite non-comic designs, here we have Arkham Knight. As the most realistic head so far, this one is really impressive. Similar to Dark Detective, there are extra panels and lines that maybe clash with the rest of the design, but generally speaking, the painted eyes and sharper ears just looks really cinematic. Conversely, the wide eyes on the No Man's Land head really pulls this into a more comic book realm, so if you wanted this in your comic display, it would definitely work. Continuing that Arkham Knight theme, and here's a Sinestro Core skin. As is often the case, this is a great swap for those who want to incorporate this Batman into their comic-style Sinestro Core, or for those wanting to customize this body. Otherwise, and I have to admit that this head has lost a little luster for me, even so, those thicker ears do really feel like the live-action masks. As a result, it cuts a pretty mean silhouette. And then for one I know a lot of you use as your main display Batman, Arkham City. With a head like this, it would blend into your comic display even better. I tend to prefer heads with shorter ears on this body, but I really like this. If you like it too, I'm happy to help. On the other hand, this is a very interesting combo. In a lot of ways it does feel like a movie-style mask, but with the wide eyes. Pulling back, and it kind of reminds me of the all-black version of the Kenner Legends of the Dark Knight detective figure. For the section I think I'm the most excited for, however, and here we have the movie versions. Starting us off is the incomparable Michael Keaton. If you already have a Keaton figure, I don't know that this combination is going to do anything new for you. At this point, honestly, I'm just holding out for the Batman Returns one. Still, the proportions on this are pretty good, but honestly, this is the combination I was excited for. I used the gold label version because it reminds me more of the Dark Knight collection. I also had to use a shorter neck peg, but if you gave me this in every one of those crazy Kenner colors, I'd be as happy as a clam. That being said, if there was any one of these figures I want to do a trunk swap with, it's this one. Again, just like the head swap with Michael Keaton, the point isn't to make this a movie figure, rather it's to make a comic style version of the movie costume. This might be a touch too on the nose, but it does look really good. Next up, and for who might just be the most underappreciated Batman actor, the late great Val Kilmer. At this point it's hard to say if we're ever going to get the Batman Forever Panther suit. Obviously the neck on this figure is a bit thin, but the arms, gloves, and boots are actually a pretty fair approximation. Other way around, and the white eyes do evoke that Kenner feeling, so if you wanted to make a tribute to one of the Batman Forever figures from back in the day, this would be a fun start. For the most overhated Cape Crusader, here's George Clooney from Batman and Robin. That's not to say the Batman and Robin isn't a bad movie, of course, just that it's not really George Clooney's fault. I don't know if any actor could have made that script work. Either way, this figure combination looks pretty good. Once again though, unless you're going for a Kenner tribute or you like your Batman with the headlights on, I don't really think anybody's looking for this combo. That said, the plastic might just be the best match we've seen so far. With a little paint, maybe you could turn him into the Batman from those old OnStar commercials.
OnStar.
This is Batman. I need my door unlocked.
I'll do it right away.
Next up, and saving the franchise, is Christian Bale in Batman Begins. This is one of my favorite Batman movie costumes, and the comic head really elevates it. It wouldn't be hard at all to sneak this onto your comic book shelf. The mask was my least favorite part of the costume, so to me, this is perfect. That's not to say this mask is bad or anything, there are definitely worse ones. I always just felt that the hole for the mask was just a bit too small and a bit too round. Still, this does give us an idea of what Christian Bale might have been like with that bright oval bat. And here's Christian in his costume from The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. Since the movie head is the same, I'm just going to do this combination. As I often say, this is probably my least favorite live-action Batman costume, but if seeing this inspires your creativity, that's what it's all about. For the next bat in our belfry, and here's Ben Affleck from Dawn of Justice. Affleck's suit is hands down the most comics accurate costume, so if you wanted a more detailed Batman on your comic shelf, this is definitely definitely the way to go. Just keep in mind you're going to also need to swap the neck pegs because the one that comes with Affleck is a bit too long. On the other hand, this is a fun glimpse into what Affleck might have looked like had he been cast in the 90s movies. Generally speaking, I associate this look with longer ears, but it's still a pretty fun what if. And then here's Ben's tactical armor from Justice League. The nice thing about this figure is that the likeness to Ben Affleck is a lot stronger, so if you want a solid Batfleck head, this is the way to go. Otherwise, in this configuration isn't that different to what we just looked at. This, however, is a great option for those who want an armored Batman on their comic shelf. It might not resemble anything from a comic, but it's still a pretty imposing design. For one of the more divisive live-action Batsuits, and here's Robert Pattinson from The Batman. I know I'm a broken record as far as how much I dislike this particular mask, so I'm going to try not to repeat myself. Long story short, that stitched up look does clash with the rest of this suit. I also always note that even though I don't like the Robert Pattinson mask, I do like the costume. This simple swap really highlights the difference a better mask could make, elevating what's already a pretty solid Batsuit. Lastly, and bringing our oval bat symbol full circle, and here's Michael Keaton from The Flash. While I did like this mask in the movie, I'm not that crazy about the action figure head. Between the ears and nose, it just feels kind of off, so this combination doesn't really do anything for me personally. The thing of it is, I really like this Batsuit, so this combination is a real treat. I will warn you that the neck is a bit thick, so the head doesn't sit quite right, but overall, this design just feels like a celebration of all of the classic live-action movie suits. Okay, maybe not all, but you get the idea. And now on to the main event, let's take a look at the comic book versions. Starting with the very first DC Multiverse Batman, and here we have Detective Comics 1000, similar to the Grim Knight, and this is another figure I've been thinking about rotating off, mainly just because of how outdated Detective Comics 1000 is compared to more modern DC Multiverse Batman. I'd still bring him out for the rare occasion it feels appropriate, but let me know in the comments if you'd be okay with that. Otherwise, then, as usual, this head is a huge improvement. With so many standard Batmen having come out the last couple of years, it can be hard to remember that for the longest time this was our only DC Multiverse option. And let's be honest, it was never really a great one. Also, and for anyone interested, here's a trunk swap. I will warn, these trunks are a harder plastic and do kind of interfere with articulation, but as a more techie option, they do look pretty cool. Next up is the diminutive DC Rebirth. That slightly smaller head makes the body look that much beefier by comparison, and I will say the blacks match up perfectly, so you won't need to do any repainting. Mainly it comes down to whether or not you prefer a longer or shorter eared look. With that being the case, I will say a longer eared look seems kind of alien on the Rebirth design. That said, while I do like the face sculpt better, that larger head has the opposite effect of making the body look a little bit scrawnier by comparison. Proportion-wise though, I do like this better than the upcoming re-release. For a double whammy, and here's the Lee Bermejo inspired Page Punchers and Batman Noel. Between the two, I prefer Batman Noel for that gray bodysuit and cloth goods cape. Unfortunately, the finish of the blacks don't match up quite as well here and would need some touching up. Page Punchers has a nice matte finish, so it blends really well, and while the gray might be a bit more green for my taste, it does still look really good. The glossier black of Noel makes it a much better match for No Man's Land. I also kind of prefer that more static expression. The nice thing, however, is that Page Punchers is the same basic face, just with more of a sneer, so it does feel like you're getting multiple head options for the same figure. Next up, and for the body that brought us this repaint, here we have Nightfall. Though the facial structure is a bit different, these heads are very similar. The main difference being that the ears on Nightfall are just a little bit shorter. That extra length is a bit more apparent this way around. Looking at it, I think I actually might prefer this head a little bit more, but the thing that I'm the most interested in for this figure is a trunk swap. Not surprisingly, it is everything I was hoping for. The yellows are a perfect match, and the funny thing is I actually have an extra black and gray Nightfall for fodder purposes, so I might just keep it this way. In the interest of fair play, and here's Nightfall with the No Man's Land belt. Again, those yellows are a perfect match, and overall I'm pleasantly surprised. For one that still needs a video of his own, and here's the 13th Hour Backglider version. As a modified repaint of Rebirth, this figure does not even come close to capturing all the lines and panels of an actual actual New 52 Batman, though the utility belt is fairly accurate at least. That being the case, the fact that this head doesn't really match with the New 52 style does not bother me at all. On the flip side, this is a very Greg Capullo head, and that's great for those looking for Greg Capullo style options. As for how well that translates to this body, well, I'll let you be the judge. For the one Hush style figure I can swap with, and here we have the Cowardly Lot. It could be argued this head's a bit small for this, but it could rightfully be argued that this head is a bit small for this body. Just looking at it in person though, you don't really notice. And pulling back, I like this a lot more than I expected. Unfortunately, I don't know if I can say the same thing about this. For one thing, you would need to do a bit of painting to match the finish. Zooming out though, and the fact that this head is a bit big for the body is more apparent. And lastly, the Walmart exclusive Batman Year One. For as many things as I like about the Year One figure, I have felt that the head's a bit too big, so the proportions of this work much better for me. Not only that, but with a smaller head, the shorter arms don't stand out quite as much. Ironically, because this body's a bit bigger, the larger head actually works really well. It's just a good, clean, simple design. It actually reminds me of this old Mattel figure, so overall, I count this as a win. As long as I'm here though, I'd really like to see if I can do a trunk swap between Year One and the regular No Man's Land. And yeah, you know what? This looks great. Not only is the color of the belt more natural, it perfectly matches the color and design on the box. You'd have to repaint the trunks, of course, and if you want to make it the most comics accurate, you'd use gray, and honestly, that's pretty much what McFarlane should have given us to start with. Also, while I'm here, for those who want to use this as a regular Batman, here he is with the Nightfall capsule belt. Just keep in mind that the blues don't match, so you're either going to have to paint or swap. Finally, and while I know the parts are incompatible, I really want to find a way of making a trunk swap work with JLA. Wow, wow, wow. For that perfect balance between comic and movie, this is the move. To make this swap work, I used the groin piece from Batman Year One, but it's the same as Rebirth, so that's a lot more accessible. I will say these trunks are a little bit large, but you can barely tell. As far as I'm concerned though, I think we've saved the best for last. Though to be fair, I do really still like this one. Which combination did you like best? Sound off in the comments below. While you're down there, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss my upcoming No Man's Land Troika Verses. For more Batman while you wait, check out one of these, and until next time, play nice and have fun. That's all, folks.